and women. Sarah behind me. Catherine, where are you? Oh man, I thought you had everybody here. The Sir Optimists have been involved, you've all been amazing, thank you. And the girls from CSAS as well, so thank you everybody, it's been brilliant. We've had this planned for 3 months since what happened to Sarah. And the first thing we want to do is get on the march. We're going to have some speakers as soon as we get back here. Somebody's going to look after our stuff, but we've got a huge banner here. We're going to get either side of the banner, and we need somebody to stand in the middle and help us with it because it's pretty big. So if we can, please remember there's still coronavirus, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. We've got a little table here that's full of masks, hand sanitizer, anti-back wipes, if anybody needs anything. Whilst we're marching and whilst we're standing here listening to the speakers, if you can keep your distance, let's go. And we're here to demand an end to violence against women, and that's the message that we're going to take round with us. Sarah's kindly written the names of all of the women who've died this year on this board, and we're going to take them with us, and we're going to finish the walk that Sarah Everard started. That she didn't finish, she was murdered on the way, and that's why we're here. So let's get on with it.
The Geordie charm.
Woo.
Guys, can we move quickly to stop traffic? Thank you.
Thank you everybody, that was brilliant. So our first speaker tonight is going to be Sarah, who has been my partner in organising all of this. She's incredible.
Everyone, please forgive my poor public speaking skills. I've worked in the violence against women sector for a long time. I've worked in domestic abuse and rape crisis. So this is something that's very, very, very dear to my heart. Can you hear me okay? Sorry. At least 46 more women have been killed by men since Sarah Everard, and 27 were killed before her. A total of 74 already this year, at least, that we know of, have been killed by men, male violence. Stats show that around 2 to 3 women are killed by male violence here in the UK every week. In 2020, at least 107 women were killed by male violence. The majority of them knew their murderer, was in a relationship with them, was related to them, and most probably loved them. Many of them were killed in their own homes. But murder is the tip of the violence tip of the iceberg of violence against women. Rape, sexual assault, stalking, harassment, catcalls, forced marriage, exploitation, honour violence. The list is long, and I'm sure that you, as women, know a lot of the things that happen. Violence against women is not inevitable. It's not human nature. It's not a fact of life, and it's not a crime of passion, or he just snapped. It's criminal. Violence against women in all its forms is entitlement. It's a choice, a deliberate decision. A deliberate decision to scare, undermine, dominate, or harm someone because they're female. To end violence against women, there must be zero tolerance for all forms of discriminatory, violent, or abusive behaviour toward women and girls. At home, at school, at work, online, and in public. We should expect respect. We should expect safety. And we should expect to make it home. Official data shows that in the 16 years between April 2003 and March 2019, 16 years, there were 92 victims killed by terrorist acts in Great Britain. By comparison, at least 100 women a year are intentionally killed by male violence. And for every woman killed, there are thousands of women living in violent, controlling, and abusive situations. The closure and under-resourcing of specialist women's services means that women struggle to find the help and the safety that they need when they need it. We know how violence against women works. We know what sorts of interventions and support women need. We know the role played by sex inequalities. All the lessons have been learned and all the recommendations have been made. We need political will and resources. We need to make big changes to women's status in society and to men's entitlement. We need to challenge sex role stereotypes. Women need to be believed, respected, valued, and perpetrators must be held to account. Tonight we march to mourn and to honour all of our sisters lost to violence and their loved ones. This is a list of the people who have been, the women that have been murdered by male violence this year alone. It's already at 74. We're marching to show solidarity and sisterhood with women and girls everywhere. And we're demanding change and a future free from fear and violence for all girls and women. Women and girls, expect respect and accept nothing less. Thank you all so much.
Our next speaker is going to be Amanda King. I've known Amanda for a good number of years now, from a distance. And she's just one of those people that you kind of watch in awe. She's one of the most compassionate people I've ever met. And I'm really, really honoured that she's come to speak for us tonight. Amanda.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Sarah. I'm a councillor from Warrington, and I'm not here by mistake. My best friend's daughter's on that list, Natea. Put your hand up if you know anyone that's been in a domestic violence situation. Keep your hand up if you know someone who's been murdered by it. It's horrible. It goes to the extreme part of what domestic violence against women is. Natea was 20 years old, and only 3 hours before leaving her partner to a lovely new flat, lovely new stuff, he strangled her to death at 1:30 in the morning. They walked into a police station and said, "Oh, I've murdered her." He still hasn't been fully charged or gone to court, which will happen in September, hopefully. They had to quiz his mental health. They had to check. She has a little baby who was 4 months old at the time. The baby went into care, and he got a say on what happened to that baby, even though he murdered the mother. So again, when you go through anything that extreme, it's really difficult to talk about. So I won't go on anymore because that's going to upset me and I don't want to cry in the situation. I grew up in a household that was a domestic violence household. My father spent 20 years repairing his belief system, what he felt about women and what we should do moving forward. My mum set up Runcorn Witness Women's Refuges back in the 80s, and I used to babysit for them at the age of 15. And we used to ship women around the country to protect them from their partners. Many of them went back to their partners because they thought they loved them, or they were told that no matter where they went in the country, they'd be found. And they believed that, from being stabbed, to battered, to abused, to drug abused, to sexually abused. And in this world, unfortunately, we have a system of modern day slavery, which affects women massively. And I'm on the union, quite a few people if you're in a union here, and I'm on a risk committee, and we talk about modern day slavery. So if anyone wants to come and have a look at that, that's really prevalent, where women are forced into pregnancy, and then their children are forced into servitude, which is really quite bad. I set up Reclaim the Night Warrington. I want to reclaim the night in every single town, city, village, across the town. It's not just about females, it's about getting the males to be included as well, because they're our allies. It's not about them particularly, but it's about women, but males are fantastic allies as well. Going through this list, Natalia was 20, she was a nursery nurse, and she met a lovely guy, French-speaking guy, and their first 12 months was beautifully romantic. And she fell pregnant, and she had a little baby, and they were so happy. Then he started becoming quite controlling, and she wasn't in a fight with him when he did this. She was leaving him for her own flat, but still wanted to include him with the child, and include him with the family, and he just turned, he just snapped, he just strangled her to death, and she's lost her life, and we've lost her now, and my Emma has lost her mum. How many women, I don't know what the stories are of the other women on this board, and every other woman that's lost her life, or every woman that's going through it tonight, tomorrow night, and the next night. You must listen out to your neighbours or your friends, or watch out for this when you're in your workplaces or your community places, or just talking to your neighbours. There's always someone going through some level of crisis, and they might display that in multiple different ways. What I've learned from doing stuff at Green Uncommon at the age of 14, all the way through to what I do now as a counsellor, only in the last sort of month I've had 2 cases in my ward alone of rape. One of them was a sexual play, which he talked about but didn't think he'd go through with, and he tormented her for 4 hours, and she won't go to the police. She doesn't think they'll do anything about it. And the other one was a rape in the street. And so far they had to, so for example, there's been lots of, Sarah's talked about lots of services, and there is services. And there's 2 things that pains me. One's Clare's Law. It's a wonderful thing, but it was set up by Claire's family through protest to get it, but it should have been there anyway. And if you want to find out who's on Claire's Law, you have to prove that person's part of your life. And I'll give you an example. There's a councillor that's been elected that's on Claire's Law, and I can't get him unelected. He's not any political party, he's independent, but I know he's on Claire's Law, and I can't get him off that elected list because it doesn't, there's more they need to do with that. So that person's now in a political position that can go into children's homes, nursing homes, whatever he wants to do, but he tormented a woman so badly that he's now on that list. But that list is so private, we can't see it unless you apply to it through 101. So that, again, pains me, because it's a service for women, but it doesn't really service or protect the women that it's supposed to protect. And there's lots of other things that are in place. For example, if a woman goes to the police station and she's been through a rape situation, and she has to take her clothes off, which is again undignifying for the woman, there's not many decent clothes for you to give her to put back on. So I've known female police officers buy clothes themselves out of their own money to put into a little system, so if women go to their station, they can be given those clothes. Why isn't it just there? Why aren't there just clothes in different sizes and underwear for women, so they don't feel like they've got to put a paper bag on or some sort of baggy dress with no bra or knickers, when they've already been through a massive ordeal? So the dignity programme isn't really up to scratch. And for female police officers come to me to ask me for financial funding to try and help them fund women's clothes. That's quite sad. So think about that. If anything you can do to help support women in your social circle or at a political level, please do it, because it's not equal. And if it was just happening to men, forgive the men in the room because I know you're here as allies, so thank you so much for being here. I salute all you men that are here as well. if this was just happening to men, my God, they'd have a wardrobe full. They'd have a chauffeur driven, and every person who did it would go to jail. So I'll give you another example. In Witness, there's a young man who was a parish councillor, it's in the press, we can talk about it, who sexually assaulted a police officer, a man in a pub, and someone else. It was a male to male. And he did that through touching them. He's already been convicted and put to jail within 6 months. I've known women that have been brutally raped by multiple men, and the men are still walking free. So tell me how that's fair. It's right that he should be in jail, totally accept that. But his case was minor in comparison to other cases that are still sitting there. So when it's a male to a female, it's less likely to go to court than it's male to male, which is also a problem. So I could whittle on forever. I'd say real huge passion of mine. I'm on the Labour Regional Board, so I obviously labour it there. I'm on the Regional Board for Unite, so I talk about modern day slavery all day long. Because this is part of it. It's servitude and women in servitude to men, or to a partner. It could be woman to woman as well. I'm not going to rule that out because that does happen too. But look at these women, remember their names, try and think about their stories and their backgrounds. I'll just leave you with a note. A friend of mine was reading a Jack the Ripper's book about the victims and the victims' backstories. They weren't all prostitutes or women of ill repute, as they used to call us. You know, God help me, I've got boobs on and maybe my boobs out, so, you know, God help me, you know, man can just touch me when he wants. And the backstories of these individuals, every one of these women had a mother, a sister, a brother, a child, a background, and all of that life has been affected. And we need to do something more. So Clare's Law needs to be developed even further. And actually politicians need to be laboured on a daily basis, because women are getting murdered on a daily basis. And it's just sitting there like it's normal, or society thinks that's okay. It's not. Absolutely not okay. So if anyone ever wants to talk to you about it or get involved in different groups, I'm on multiple different groups, Sarah as well, Helen as well, as I'm sure you've all part of your own groups. I can see a lovely group at the back over there in the blue tabards. They look really interested, and have a chat with them later. But every day you should be trying to save a life. So please try and save a life. I'm sure you do anyway. Thank you anyone who's already saved a life. And I know I've removed women from houses before now. Even as a child, there's 2 women who are counsellors today who used to live with me as a child. And I walked into a meeting with them about 6 months ago, and they went, oh, that's little Mand. And we saved their lives. They're now counsellors and have beautiful lives and are working really well. So women can come through it and be a survivor. I'm a survivor of domestic violence. And the police wouldn't listen to me at a time when that was happening, and it went on to the next woman. And we went, being here, I ended up putting him in jail. So well done me for doing that, because he deserved it. But he went on to do something worse to the next one that he did to me. So I feel a bit guilty that I didn't force or go through with it further. So you must keep talking about it or broadcast it. There's a women's age group in Warrington who, back in the 80s, they would literally follow the man around and go, rapist, murderer, whatever. And I know that's not something the police aren't here, but I'm not something to condone to do. But, you know, we've got them in our society living amongst us who think it's okay. And it starts with, I'm also a white ribbon ambassador. Start with the young men in school. Something's being said to these young men that makes it feel like they can chase or domineer or do something. They're not born this way unless they've got a serious medical issue. So something happens to that individual as he grows up or as they grow up, you know. So I don't know, White Ribbon's also a massive campaign. I think it's more nature than nature. I think nature plays a part in it as well. I think there's a huge aggressor point that can happen in it naturally in a human being. But sometimes, if you're told all your life you can have that, that's yours, you're great, you can go and take what you want, just take it, you can have it. The strongest, survival of the fittest. I think we've gone past being animals, do you know what I mean? We've evolved. So there's a point, again, like when a little boy hits a little girl in a playground, it's like, oh, he's just being affectionate. He's not, shouldn't hit her, and she shouldn't hit him. There's a messaging that happens as well that can compound something that maybe happens about illness or something of sometimes it's domineering as well. And sometimes it's just fear. Sometimes I think Natalia was killed through fear. I think her partner didn't want her to leave him, and he killed her because he'd rather have her dead than be with someone else. And I truly believe that's where his mind went. So again, it can be fear-driven as well. But there still needs to be a social change and a language change towards how we treat each other as human beings. I don't see males or females, I see human beings first. We should start there and work our way up to that rather than just think about someone as an object. I go on forever, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to let you crack on.
So I've got a few words to share with everybody, and then our final speaker will be Felicity. But I've already heard Felicity speak today. She's an absolute powerhouse activist. Earlier on, I saw Felicity at the NHS demo, and I'm struck right now by how many politicians were here at the NHS demo and how many are missing tonight. Where are they? Amanda's a politician, thank you so much for being here. But where is everybody who was here today? Probably watching the match. So I want to thank everybody for coming. I was really scared that you wouldn't. I was scared that the threat of us losing the right to protest would scare you away tonight. I was wrong. There's more people here than I thought was going to show up, because we're not easily frightened. We wouldn't have marched through the town there with all those crowds screaming if we were. But we've got to continue to protest to protect our right to protest. We've got to keep showing up. We've got to keep organising. We need to unite in this cause. We need to stop demanding moral purity from the woman next to us. We're in the real world here, where women are being murdered, and we need to find reasons to come together, not reasons to divide. This coalition... Sorry, I've lost my spot on here. I've missed a bit. So, tonight we wanted to announce that we are going to be launching a coalition. So it doesn't end here. We've already had a number of services pledge to support the coalition, and we're going to be building a board. A huge email's gone out. Thank you, Sarah, for all your work with that. To every woman's service that we could find, and we're inviting them to come onto this board, and we're going to keep campaigning for change. And we want real change. I don't mean photo opportunities. I don't mean advertising opportunities for corporate monstrosities that haven't dealt with their gender pay gap. I don't want fluff and chat. I want real change. I want to do everything that I can do to make that happen. I know we say no means no, but I'm not taking no for an answer. I'm not a person who hears no and listens. I'm a person who sees injustice, gaps, a reason to fight, and I fight. And that puts me high on people's lists of pain in the arses. Am I bothered? No. There's people who would rather I wasn't here talking to you tonight. And that's because the status quo works for them. It works for the people who are in power and the people who have the power to make these real changes. And their mealy-mouthed excuses are they're not excuses anymore, they're murderous. We're not going to cave to pressure in this coalition. We're not going to be sponsored to give some bastard CEO a warm glow pretending that everything's okay. I'm here to tell you that tonight it's about waking up. We're not trying to find our power. We already know where it is, it's here. We've had it all along. We're not here to find our voices because we've got them. And we've used them tonight. And I just want to say thank you again to everybody who's helped to organise this. And welcome Felicity up onto the microphone.
Yeah.
Thank you, Felicity.
Thank you. I'm not sure I can follow those speeches because I think they've been wonderful. I was invited to come here from the Trades Council in Chester. That's where all the unions meet together. And remember, women are a majority of trade union members. That's not the way we think of unions, but that's the fact. Women are a majority of trade union members. The other thing I want to say before I go on to what I've prepared is that this country would not have got through the pandemic without the magnificent work of women. Women in the health service, 85% of nurses. Women in care. Women teaching. The women in the shops. Women kept this country going. We need to remember our power. We have power. One of my big campaigns is to save Liverpool Women's Hospital. And as well as saving the Women's Hospital, we've naturally grown into trying to protect the national maternity provision. And believe me, that is bad. Britain is not even in the top 10 countries in the world for being safe to have a baby. Greece, poor, poverty-stricken Greece, is a safer place to have a baby than this place. And time and again, maternity units are closed. We're desperately short of midwives. But one of the bits that breaks your heart is one of the registered causes of stillbirth is domestic violence. I was at the board meeting. We go and we harass them and we sit and we ask questions all the time for the last 5 years. But it breaks your heart to see the figures for stillbirths and the link to domestic violence. Now, stillbirths can happen to anybody, but the fact that that's one of the factors that they don't find easy to control still breaks your heart. Now, right across the world, people are having this conversation and this fight. I have a friend called Sarah Everard. Look her up on Facebook. She runs the Federation of Home-Based Workers in Pakistan. Their Prime Minister came out and blamed women for rape, and they were on the street shouting. And believe you me, when they shout, they shout. So greetings from Zira Khan and the women in Pakistan who are fighting the same fight as us. I'm also bringing you, part of this speech, which I probably won't use all of, was written for me today by my friend Louise from Doncaster Women's Aid. Look up what's going on in Doncaster and how they're responding. 4 women were killed within a space of a month in Doncaster during the lockdown. They called a simple protest in the park, just taking flowers to start with, and 400 women turned up. Women will respond if we raise this issue. It's an issue deep in women's hearts. I remember when my daughter was tiny and we walked past a house where one of our neighbours had just been killed by her husband. And an older woman walked up to my daughter, patted her on the head and said, "Oh, don't tell her about this so young. It's bad enough when you're older." Women know, generation on generation, they know this is what's happening. And we really do have to make it clear. Years ago, we took to all the trade union conferences the slogan that domestic violence is a trade union issue. If one of your members in work turns up, you don't ignore it. You help in every way you can, so people know when they come to work, there's an ear there that will listen, there's a hand there that will help. I wanted to talk just for a minute more about why we were here this morning. We were here this morning for the NHS. The NHS is at the heart of women's safety, of women's liberation. You cannot have women's safety and women's liberation without an NHS free at the point of need and aimed at women's health. It is very, very seriously at risk. There are day after day when psychiatric patients in desperate need of an NHS bed are sent away because there is no one there for them. If that was appendicitis, if that was a heart attack, would you send them away? But most NHS beds have been privatised, and that sector is massively run now by the private sector. That is what is coming for us. in the white paper that will become a bill, we think, this week. It might be next week. We are praying that it's postponed until September so we can build our campaign still stronger. But I would lay odds that most of you do not know this. You do not know what is happening in that white paper and the impact that will have on women and women's services, let alone the fact that the nurses are already massively badly paid. If they are privatised, if they are outsourced, sent to a different employer, do you really think their national conditions of service will stay without a big fight from the unions at any rate? Do you really think that it's right that the way that professions are regulated should be changed to fit this new system? That 55 already big companies are registered through the HSSF to do NHS care. I'm sorry, I could go on forever about what's happening and I'll stop on that issue. But women need an NHS for the control of their fertility, for safety in childbirth, for dealing with all of the issues of women's bodies. Because they're great women's bodies, but they definitely need professional help from time to time. Please keep on the fight for women, for girls, for the girls in the schools. Keep on the fight so that we can say, in Chester, there is someone who will listen. In Chester, there's someone who will say, a better world is possible. And we are going to fight for that better world. Thank you.
That was right on time. Thank you. So thanks to the boys for holding the banner for that long because it's really heavy. We walked with it. Thanks everybody for coming. We're going to wrap up now. We're going to put some music back on, so if you want to chat, get to know each other and make this movement stronger. Thank you.
Woo.